No. No straw hat for this review because Thriller Bark has not earned it, and I do not want to give it the gift of dressing up for the review. This is a substantial step down from Water 7 or really anything else we have gotten from One Piece so far. Even G8, like this felt more like the filler arc to me than G8. I have problems, but what I will say is that it's impressive to me that One Piece can have a substantial step down in quality, and it's still not a miserable read. I still had enough fun and enjoyment getting through this story, but this was as bad as I actually feared One Piece was going to be when I first got into it, before I actually read the first saga at all. This felt like an accurate depiction of many of my assumptions about One Piece before I got into it. But let's start with the positive, because there are several redeeming qualities of why I could see people could even really enjoy this saga. Not only does it have a very distinct setting and atmosphere for any One Piece story, but the way certain characters come to the forefront, especially if you're a fan of Chopper and Zoro, is exceptionally rewarding. I really like the exploration of those two, and Zoro probably having his most badass moment yet at the very end here. It's just unfortunate that that ending felt tacked on to me, like this just needs to happen so that this whole thing had some purpose. It reminded me of Zack Snyder's Justice League cut, when we get that post-apocalypse and then Martian Manhunter thing at the end, just totally disconnected, trying to set up future things. And that's like a big step down for One Piece. One Piece up until now has done a remarkable job of weaving narrative lines in cohesively and smoothly, and not having anything feeling like it's just happening to happen. I don't know what happened to the author here, this just felt like it was written by someone different. There are also humongous, consistent misfirings of comedy, far worse than anything else the manga has had to offer yet. I have often laughed out loud at One Piece. I've also had just no reaction to many of the bigger jokes, but I didn't even crack a smile one time throughout this entire story, mainly because how much of the humor is derived from just sexual harassment, which not gonna find that very funny as an adult. It's just kind of cringy, and that's gonna bring me to my new least favorite member of the Straw Hat crew. Usopp, due to your elevation in the last arc to being somewhat useful, and now being supported by my massive hatred of this new member, you are fine to me. And Brook, or Brock, I read it so I'm not sure, is the absolute worst thing to happen to One Piece so far. I hate him. We are introduced to his character by him immediately sexually harassing Nami, and it just being uncomfortable and played off as a joke, and do not like that at all. Don't ask to see women's panties, ew. And then Nami is essentially reduced to people are trying to forcibly marry her for a long time, again and again and again. And then tremendous disservice is done to Sanji of having him play into this whole cringe fest. That entire massive part of this was just upsetting and bad. Luffy's fighting was varying in quality. It's usually pretty consistently a good time to watch Luffy get into combat and match up with some of the big bads, and I really liked Nightmare Luffy. That was cool as hell. But the villain I didn't care about, so it just ended up making me feel like, yeah, I'll watch the spectacle, but this just feels so self-contained and disconnected. I knew there weren't going to be larger implications until that kind of tacked on end, and yeah, that's all that really felt like. And this should have felt like higher stakes. For many reasons thematically, there were a lot of things that were built to and paid off here that felt like they should have been paid off in a better situation. The whole final fight between Kuma, I think is how you say their name, and the crew as they're defending a very exhausted Luffy was so interesting, and it was something I really have wanted to see along those lines. And then Zoro taking the brunt of all the pain so that everyone else can be allowed to survive, and then not dying was magnificent. So cool for him, and shows his loyalty and heart for this crew that's often hidden under layers of just his self. I like genuinely was like, that's his best scene yet. It feels like he just played a game of Russian roulette, because like I don't think he knew he was going to live, so having them be like, Zoro, what happened? And he's like, nothing. Oh my god, so cool. One of the cool guy moments in manga that like actually hits as well as it wants to hit. I'm not really doing my best here in articulating my thoughts on how I think this arc is failing and succeeding in different ways. So let me go ahead and give a really clear example of where I think this arc is actually standing strong versus where it is standing weak. Conceptually, a lot happens here I really enjoy, especially within the character moments. We have outstanding stuff, especially with Zoro and Chopper in the depressive states where they unveil a lot more emotional depth than we've gotten from them before. Especially Zoro when he's coming through talking about how much he respects and loves his crew and feels like he doesn't even live up to them in some ways. That's amazing, and I really liked it. And then Chopper having that final showdown is great with the person he used to look up to, but now just completely dismisses as something that's vile and wrong. And that's where One Piece is never going to fail, in the true to the heart character beats. But there were a lot of things that felt half-baked, like the main antagonist Luffy's going up against. I know what they're going for. It's a defeated version of Luffy, what Luffy could be in like the darkest timeline. Someone who had the same dream, but now is just dark and twisted and beaten down by this world to a point where they become something vile. But it wasn't thematically realized well enough. They didn't take the time or have the momentum to have the emotional weight this actual idea, I believe, deserves. It felt rushed. It felt like a first draft. There was just something about this whole arc that seems like if it was given another pass through and maybe like a third more the length, there could have been something really special here. And I will heap on some more praise to a few other aspects. The whole shadow system and how shadows can be stolen and restored to give and take powers was pretty neat. I liked all of that. Unfortunately, it was deeply tied into Brook. Well, God, I hope he dies and does not remember the Straw Hat crew for long. And how it was used for power enhancement and reduction was neat. It felt like a whole other magic system being layered in, but God, the antagonists, my brain is scrubbing them out because of just how they felt. Like the setting was cool, but everything these antagonists did within this setting felt generic for what was established. I keep wanting to call him Geico Gecko, but his name is Gecko Moria. He could have been so much more interesting, especially as a foil for Luffy. If he had been set up properly, if this whole story had been allowed a larger time to develop, which I think it needed, this could have been one of the more intriguing combatants for Luffy due to their similar motivations and him being this twisted form of Luffy. Then we even see Luffy embracing this shadow power to try and combat him, and that could have been like this nice setup and payoff of like a darker twist on what Luffy could be. But because this was so much shorter and felt like so much less than what we've recently gotten, it just felt like Diet One Piece. It just was not living up to the legacy of this series. Chopper's story was probably the most investing for me emotionally. Seeing him have someone he looked up to and having this veil pulled away and the truth and his eventual like just dismissal, talk down to revulsion at this other doctor was pretty neat. That was well done, and it avoided the cringe fest going on with Nami and Sanji and all of that. I will say I like the backstory that was given for Brook. That was actually one of the most like emotionally successful parts of this whole thing and did resonate with me. I also enjoyed Usopp more this time around. He didn't bother me as much as he served more purpose and was more actionful, and his immunity to a certain thing was pretty enjoyable, but that's really where the positives end. Frankie was just here and floating around. I didn't care about him, to be honest. Though, something else that was interesting was seeing all the new aspects of the new ship and how much of an upgrade it really is. I definitely miss the Going Merry, but I'm intrigued by all the abilities of this new one. I know One Piece fans often want these reviews, they are specifically reviews, to be more summaries. I'll link a summary video I actually found of this arc down in the description if you'd like a full summary. This is a review. I am not doing One Piece summaries, though I have steered them more to being that style up until this point, because I know you guys want that, but here I just don't feel the need to, because I don't have a lot to say about the story other than I wasn't very invested. It felt disjointed and messy compared to how well thought out a lot of other One Piece was, and while the setting was interesting, it was not tied into or executed well enough for existing story matters to actually feel worth it or needed. It's bad that I found myself most interested by some like little things at the very end, like how Lola gives Nami this card that has some pretty neat factors, and then turns out, oh man, Luffy's brother might need some help, but Luffy's just like, nah, he's good. Continuing on. And Luffy, I love that he likes to welcome people in the crew, but just this like blind everybody in was obnoxious. It was actually the first time in all of One Piece that I've, instead of viewing Luffy as this like charming idiot, started to be annoyed by his actions. Though he did get to tame and ride a Cerberus, and that was awesome. Overall though, yeah, I'm feeling a strong 5 out of 10, with some aspects that I enjoyed far more and others far less. I don't know. I'm sure I'm gonna get some hate in the comments, but this is just my honest thoughts, and I am still excited to continue on with One Piece. One strike by no means is going to be knocking this series out. I still love it. This is just one turn in the journey that I'm not feeling too well. Anyway, everyone, like and subscribe if you have not already. Hit the Patreon if you want to support what I do here, and I hope this skeleton bastard dies, because he is not funny or worth being in the crew at all. I guess Usopp's fine, though. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.